everybody, aspires to have what you have, but they don't aspire to do the work that you did in order to get where you got, right?
Chris, welcome to the show.
Aaron, great to be here. I'm excited to jump into, I don't know, maybe a whole variety of topics. That's what you threatened me with in the beginning. So I'm kind of excited.
Yes, it was a big threat. And my first and most important question is, Chris, how are you doing? Like, actually, like, for real, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing wonderful. I was listening to Alex Hormozi today. I don't know if you follow Alex Hormozi. He's a business guru. He's got a huge following. And he was just talking about how you settle in to have great days. And in his case, he kind of identified 3 things that help him to have great days. I feel like I have kind of really orchestrate most of my days to be really great days. So I get up. If the kids are in school, I take the kids to school. I come back. I get some exercise. I get ready. I head to work. I join on podcasts like yours, which I really thoroughly enjoy, and then just continue to move the science forward, continue to move the awareness of the molecule that I work with on a daily basis. So yeah, I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. Happy to hear that. Yeah, I love stacking the good days. I've been an athlete my whole life, and so like I'm very routine oriented. Kind of obsessive, maybe to a fault, if you ask my wife. And so like my sort of thing was like learning to like let go a little bit. Like if it doesn't go exactly the way I need it to, the day can still be good. If I don't get my this, that's what basically I've been learning in my life. And I'm going to be a father here as we record this in the next 6 weeks, hopefully, God willing.
Congratulations.
And so I know for sure I'm going to have to be able to just adjust my routine, figure out things on the fly. And so that's sort of been my focus as being like super routine oriented throughout my whole life, being an athlete and all of that. So it's very interesting.
I'll add to that. So this is kind of interesting. I've done some very weird things, I think, kind of compared to other people at young ages. And I think it was around 14. I think exactly what you described, which were like things I wanted to control things. I wanted things in control. I didn't like when they were out of control. And then I actually looked around and had this bizarre, awareness at 14 that at some point I'm going to want to have kids. And at some point, like, all hell breaks loose. Like when you have kids, like literally all, like they don't do what you say all the time, like all of this. So I at 14 started saying, hey, you got to get more comfortable with things not being in control and figure out how to be comfortable with that. So I kind of intentionally practiced that from a young age.
That's like some wicked awareness as a 14-year-old. I've been around a lot of young athletes, and like, some of them do possess it also. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Speaking of you as a young man, I know that you sort of always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's also very interesting. How did you have that knowing? Or I guess you were just a super brilliant 14-year-old, eh?
Oh, well, when I tell the story, you'll go like, maybe less brilliant and more just a 14-year-old. So I had on my wall a poster of a Lamborghini Countach, and it was bright red. The gull-wing doors were open. I could smell the leather in it. I wanted one of these cars. And back then, today, if you Google, how to get a supercar, you'll probably get a bunch of videos of young guys leaning against rented supercars telling you exactly how to sign up for their course so they can teach you how to get a supercar, right? Like that's what you get now. That wasn't even an option for me because the internet did not exist at this time. Somehow I got a hold of an article. I imagine it was like a Motor Trend or some Motorhead magazine that outlined if you wanted a supercar, what you would need to do. And it said, if you want one supercar, you should become a neurosurgeon. If you want more than one supercar, you should become an entrepreneur. And my 14-year-old mind, right? Like, you're working with 14-year-olds, 17-year-olds now, like, why wouldn't you want more than one? So it was literally in that moment, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and then let me kind of try and figure out what that's going to look like. And that's how I ended up as an entrepreneur.
Very interesting. Did you have an idea then of what sort of avenue you were going to take? Did you know it was going to be in sort of longevity supplements, or you're going to find this molecule that sort of changed the way you think about things?
Zero idea, like literally zero idea. So in my family, it was always understood that we were going to go to college, right? I graduated from high school. I hadn't applied anywhere. I didn't know where I was going to go. I had, some decent scores and grades, we'll say decent, to get into some schools. But I hadn't really planned. And at that time, my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved every 2 years, but he got his second civilian job. I graduated from high school in Dayton, Ohio, which is where the largest Air Force base is. He got his second civilian job in Houston at the time over the summer that I graduated from high school. And so I came down here, applied to the University of Houston, and I talk about in my book. So I've got a book, Live Longer and Better, which talks about really probably most of what we're going to talk about today. And so I came down and what is a guy who wants to be an entrepreneur but doesn't know exactly what he wants to do as an entrepreneur, doesn't have, I haven't mapped out, I'm going to go to Silicon Valley or whatever. And my thought process, now today you might think, oh, enter an entrepreneurship program. In fact, the University of Houston, which is where I went to school, now has an entrepreneurship program, but back then they didn't. In fact, when I was researching for the book, there was only one course, not like course of study, one class on entrepreneurship when I went to college.
Wow.
And in my mind, and even today, I might choose something different than entrepreneurship because my thought process was, I'm good in science, I'm good in math. What's the fastest way to study and earn the highest salary? And so I studied engineering, specifically mechanical engineering, because that is a fast way to a high salary. So then I would have money to invest. And a couple things went wrong. When you say a fast way, that's usually 4 years. It took me 6 years to graduate from college. I did start a company. I did also get minors in computer science and math. But yeah, that didn't happen in 4 years. And the other one is I actually started a company before I even graduated from college. And so, I've been working that business for now 34, 35 years. And that's been my focus this time.
Very interesting. Now, if you look at the internet, I mean, you talked about Alex Hormozi, right? There's advice about being an entrepreneur everywhere, but you're like an actual entrepreneur who's been doing it in the weed, in the trenches, has a successful business. What do you think maybe is missing around sort of the internet dialogue about being an entrepreneur that some people may miss or forget about or don't actually know if they haven't been in the trenches, anything like that?
Man, I have to say, if you listen to Alex Hormozi, he probably covers everything. If we kind of pull him out of the equation, there's something that I've been saying for quite some time. And I may have even been listening to Alex talk about some parallel to this, which is my concept is that success is incredibly boring, right? And there are people, and I think Alex uses this quote, which is everybody, aspires to have what you have, but they don't aspire to do the work that you did in order to get where you got, right? And that applies to athletics, right? I wish I could swing a bat as good as you. But am I going to go swing the bat enough times so I can swing the bat as good as you? It's just not in my cards, right? It's not something that really piques my interest. So there's something that is really important to figure out, which is how do I have such a clear vision of where I'm going and what I'm going after, or that why, so that when I pursue that why and I get stuck in boring, mundane, and sometimes painful situations, painful meaning whatever, a big client drops or whatever happens, that I can keep trudging through. Because at the end of the day, I say success is really boring. And the example I give also in athletics is Michael Phelps, right? Michael Phelps swam that same pool, that same lap at the same temperature, 4 hours, and then he ate the same 15,000 calories every day, because that's how many calories he was burning in his workouts. And he didn't do that for days. He didn't do it for weeks. He didn't do it for months. He didn't just do it for years. He did it for a decade, right? And so you kind of think about that and you describe it and you're like, that's really boring, right? Like you're like, I'm mapping out what I'm going to do over the next 10 years and it's going to involve 15,000 calories, probably the same stuff, broccoli and chicken or whatever, and swimming the same laps with, peaks of excitement when I get to compete. And so there is something that you've got to figure out and understand that it's boring. I'll also share one other story. I remember a friend of mine shared with me, hey, Chris, I want to be like you. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. And I was like, hey, Mo, you have to understand that, yeah, I'm kind of my own boss, but the reality is everybody's my boss. Everybody else. Now I can fire one of my bosses, right? But that has an impact on my income. So I have that option, but the reality is I serve a lot more people than you serve just a boss. So if you've got a non-entrepreneurial job and you've got a boss that you know how to work with, that might be kind of an optimal scenario. You got to weigh the pros and cons, and yeah, it comes with flexibility. It comes with, if you do it right, it comes with increased income. But it comes with there's a lot, and sometimes it's really boring.
Yes. We say to our athletes all the time, it's a quote from Kobe Bryant. He said, be brilliant at the basics. And like, that is the foundation for everything. I mean, when I look at, like, you're in the podcast game, Chris, right? Like, how many people do you know do 4 or 5 podcast episodes and are like, shit, why am I not Joe Rogan? What's the deal here? Because you fucking did 4 or 5 episodes, mate. That's why. Like, I mean, try like 100, try 200, try 300. It's the same thing for anything, right? I wanted to do more public speaking. Okay, I'll send out 10 emails. That's not going to get me anywhere. Now, if I send out 10,000, well, okay. Now I'm at the right track. Now I might get 1,000 of those responses, and maybe I can pick up some traction. But it's like, you think you're doing a lot, maybe 10x it. Like, that's the vibe that you have to. If you're really into something. Now, if you do 10 podcast episodes, that's a pretty good sample size to know that this maybe not. I don't really like this. I don't really like sitting down and having a conversation. It's kind of boring. I don't know how you'd not like it. It's like the most interesting thing in the world to be not distracted by anything and only focused on one thing and hear interesting shit from interesting people. But like, whatever, your choice, like, whatever. But that's the vibe, and I see that. I see like that a lot with young people. I see some who are like willing to be like, I'm willing to do it. Like I told you at the beginning, we had 21 players at the start of our season. We ended with 10. Those 10, fucking, I would take them to war. They're ready to go. They're ready to fight. The others just maybe don't want the thing they say they want. And I find that a lot in sort of the entrepreneur game, the sports game, the business game. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think now this would be interesting. I'll turn the tables on here because it's an interesting point to ponder. Do you think entrepreneurs are born, or can you evolve into an entrepreneur?
I would say a little bit of both. I think the point you made just a few minutes ago was really right, because if you find something that you're willing to like go for, then you can turn yourself into an entrepreneur. Some people can just do really painful, hard work, even if they don't like the thing, because they see the light at the end of the tunnel. Those people are kind of born to be entrepreneurs, and then they'll stumble upon the golden nugget, and they're like, oh, I already have all the skills because I did this thing that I hated. Now I can do the thing that I love, and I'm willing to go through it all. But if some people find the thing they love early on, like some kid who's 14, like super loves turtles, he's going to create a business for that no matter what, because he loves the thing and he'll learn the skills along the way. So I think there can be a little bit of both. I think that's probably true maybe with any person who becomes excellent in a certain domain. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a little bit of both. I recently interviewed Dave Asprey, and he was like, he just believes entrepreneurs are born. Like, and it was a really small piece of our conversation because they're really focused mostly on health and wellness. But interesting that he's a fantastic. I mean, he literally took somebody else's coffee recipe and turned it into $100 million business. Like, that's amazing. He's a fantastic entrepreneur, and his opinion is like, yeah, it's you're born. You don't kind of evolve into being an entrepreneur.
Interesting. Yeah, like it's some sort of talent in your bones. I mean, that's probably true, right? Because even if I love being a basketball player, if I'm not 6'9", then I don't have the talent to most likely do it, unless I'm one of the very rare people who can be like 6 feet and under and still produce high quality NBA type of stuff. But that's very rare. Anyways, that's a very good point. But back to you. So you want to be an entrepreneur, and then you stumble upon this thing. Is this what is your purpose for your life, or do you think this was like something, maybe I could go with this molecule that I found? How did all that come about? What's the genesis there?
Yeah. So, well, what we're talking about is this molecule. So, I'm holding up a model of a molecule. If you're listening, it is a podcast. I recognize some people are listening. What I'm holding up, just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The molecule was discovered in 1985 at Rice University, which is here in Houston. That's where our lab is based. And the three scientists who discovered that molecule actually won the Nobel Prize in 1996. So, kind of short 11 years from being discovered to being awarded the Nobel Prize. Um, my business partner, went to the University of Houston. I met my business partner at the University of Houston. It's obviously in the same city, Houston, as Rice University. And my business partner was actually working for the Texas Center for Superconductivity in their chromatography lab, separating this material because it turns out that this molecule, and we call this molecule ESS60, actually has some superconductive properties. It's actually a pretty fantastic molecule in all sorts of areas, which is why the guys who discovered it won the Nobel Prize. So he's separating this molecule, and one day his professor, who's pretty famous in the superconductivity world, Dr. Paul Chu, he came in and said, "Hey, you guys are young guys. This molecule is selling for $5,000 a gram, actually $6,000 a gram, which is amazing. You should go start a business." And my business partner, Robert, is from an entrepreneurial background. I kind of joke he did at a back of the napkin calculation, which had one number on it, $6,000 a gram. And then
Yeah.
that was it. And then he's a great engineer. So he was off and running, making the equipment to manufacture it. And they brought me, there was another partner who kind of subsequently decided to bow out. They brought me in really to do the drawings as a mechanical engineer to help with the design of the equipment, because in order to manufacture this molecule, you actually have to vaporize graphite rods at the temperature of the sun inside of an inner environment, so no oxygen, and at a slight vacuum. So there's all sorts of challenges here. And that's how we ended up starting it. Now, again, mindset was entrepreneur, certainly wasn't in the health and wellness space, really kind of following where this journey guides us. Up until really about 2012, we thought this was just going to be us selling materials to research institutions around the world because the molecule performs better than the current best material in almost every application. So that means that it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And you can imagine from those four things, we weren't thinking it would end up in the health and wellness space, right? Like, people don't wake up in the morning and go, "I wonder what part of my car battery I should be taking on a daily basis to improve my bat swing," right? like that's normally not going on. I'm sure there's a few people out there. And then that whole story kind of shifted when a publication was published in 2012. They had put this molecule, they actually thought it would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, and it's peer-reviewed published research, is because of this ESS60 molecule dissolved in olive oil. And I'm very proud to share that my lab provided the material. My lab is mentioned in that original study. And you can imagine a study that shows a 90% extension of life kind of changes my trajectory and my business partner's trajectory from being I call us happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists, right? If there is such a thing, we are it. And then into the health and wellness space. And then that's how I end up on, sharing this research, and then kind of what are the theories behind it? What are people sharing with us? What are the impacts it's having on different biological systems is what I get to do on a daily basis.
Can you just, for clarity, explain what a peer-reviewed study is and what it means for like the validity of the study, just so we're clear there?
Yeah, it's really, really important. You have kind of different tiers of studies, and one of the elevated tiers is a peer-reviewed published research paper. So, and we've actually published two papers. We're very unusual as a supplement company. We actually published one in June of this year, one of May of last year. What that looks like is, in these cases, we're just using we're funding standard studies that would go for a particular molecule. These are the kinds of things that the FDA would like to see you doing. So we're doing those studies. We fund those studies, and then we find a professor. In this case, it's actually the professor who was the lead researcher on the original paper where the rats lived 90% longer than the control group. So Dr. Fatih Musa out of the University of Paris. So we find him, we write up the details that come out of the study in a paper, and then we submit it to different organizations, and there's a peer review process. So what that means is there are scientists who will review the paper and then also potentially review the data behind the paper and make sure it makes sense, right? So you've got scientists with credibility, with awareness, with knowledge in that industry, able to look at this and go, hey, you know, if the data looks wrong, then they're going to reject the paper. If the data doesn't make sense, or if the conclusions that you're drawing from the paper aren't the right conclusions from the research that was actually done, from the results that actually happened, then that paper would get rejected. And so that peer review process is actually very important.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, so you have this rat study, you get a 90% increase in life, which is like pretty fucking insane for any sort of study to increase by 90%. I would take 90% gains on anything that I do in the gym in a second. I guess I could take I guess I could take steroids again, but you know, whatever. Anyways,
Yeah.
So when did then you take that and what you decide you're going to create some supplements with that? What's the process there?
Well, so it's an interesting story because, you know, again, my business partner and I, happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist. This study comes out, we're like, oh, that's really interesting, but I'm not even sure we want to get into the supplement industry. Crazy things start happening. So that came out in mid 2013, 12. By mid 2013, we were getting phone calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers. I can say that affectionately now because I am a biohacker. And they were saying things like, hey, how much of this stuff should we consume? And for my business partner and I, what we heard was, hey, that stuff you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of that stuff should we be consuming on a regular basis? And our thought process was zero, that you should actually not be consuming this. And we actually added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid 2013. So you can think from mid 2000, from 2000 and oh my God, my brain just shut down. From 2012, actually no, from 1991, sorry, that's when we started the company. Wow, that number just disappeared and came back. From 1991 all the way until mid 2012, we don't have not for human consumption on our labeling because we don't have this crazy wacky group of people called biohackers who are trying to take it. In mid 2012, we add not for human consumption to our labeling. And I want to be clear, the literature was clear that the molecule was safe. It's just that we're, you know, wearing our conservative carbon nanomaterial scientist hats. Now, that also led to calls. We're getting 2 to 3 calls a week, and those calls are also wacky, and they look like, hey, Chris, my knee pain is gone. And I'm like, hey, Mr. Biohacker, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they were like, yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, should my rat be taking more on Tuesdays and Thursdays to support that HIIT training? And so we kind of know what's going on. Again, the literature was clear that it was safe. And my business partner and I would get together every quarter and say, do we want to get into this supplement space? And we really didn't. There's a vast difference between delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world and being in the supplement space, right? I think it's very generous to call the supplement space challenged, right? And so we just opted quarter after quarter to not get into the business as a supplement manufacturer. In fact, in this kind of time frame, I found a peer-reviewed published research paper that said that 50% of the supplements that are on the market don't have in them what they said they had in them, right? So this research group purchased supplements off the market, 50% didn't have in them what they said they had in them. This is the exact opposite of what we were doing, delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research scientists. Finally, at the end of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting taking it on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. So now, right, entrepreneurial opportunity outside the scope we had kind of realized. We looked back at this paper where 50% of the supplements don't have in them what they say they have in them. We know that's going to happen in the space. We're a unique company. We're the company that's been working with this molecule the longest. We're the oldest and longest manufacturer and distributor of the molecule on the planet. We're in this unique position to deliver a high quality product. So we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first is a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team takes it. And by the way, it's not a requirement to work on our team. They just have access to the research and they have access to the testimonials from customers. And so everybody here takes it. So yes, we're comfortable selling it. And then you've got the FDA and the FTC. You got to cross the T's. You got to dot the I's. And then so in 2018, we started bringing this product to market and kind of in earnest.
Just a question about some of the supplements that, like the supplement industry you mentioned. How do they get? Because I've been taking supplements, some crazy shit, probably when I was young and trying to get jacked. But anyways, they used to sell wild stuff at GNC, dude. Wild stuff. Just like there was like pro hormones you could get over the counter, and we were 16 and we just bought. Anyways, that's a story for another time. But how do they get away with having stuff in there that's not on the label if it has to go through all this sort of testing and things of that nature?
Well, so the reality in the supplement space is there's not as much testing as you hope and or like. I can tell you this, right? So we decide to go into the supplement space. My role changes from chief scientist at a carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business to chief scientist at a supplement company. And so now I've got to start figuring out, okay, what do we do with the FDA? What do we do with the FTC? What does that look like? What can we say about our product? And I found something on the FDA website. I actually took a screenshot. I was like, there's no way this could be true. And so I'm going to take a screenshot. So if down the road we get in trouble, then I can go back and go, look, this is what it said. And what it says is you don't have to prove that a supplement is safe before you bring it on the market. Right. So this is not I'll address what you're asking in a second, but this is just to give you some framework. So it is your responsibility to report if anything adverse happens, like serious adverse reactions. You have to report to the FDA. By the way, that none of those has happened with our product. And I started thinking about this, and I realized, so Aaron, you could come up with your own particular formulation. It could be 10% vitamin D and 90% vitamin E, and I could do the reverse. These are 2 different supplements. There's no way the FDA has enough budget and people and time to assess these before they bring them to the market. So you're allowed to bring them to the market. You just have to report when adverse side effects happen. So when you think that, that vitamin C, that vitamin D, that vitamin E is actually getting tested by the FDA, that is not happening. Now, what should be happening if it's in a GMP, a good manufacturing practices facility, so a GMP facility, is the testing should be happening, and the testing should be, it's all documented and everything. But there is room for, suspicious characters to go, you know what, and this is, some of what happened in that original paper where 50% of the supplements didn't have in them what they said they had in them, is they had, just like you were talking about, stuff that shouldn't actually be in them. And stuff that, you can add some hormones. You can add, there's chemicals that you can add to stuff to actually have an impact. But the FDA has decided that those are dangerous and you shouldn't have them in products, and that's why they're not available. Well, nefarious people can put those things in a product. People take the product, they experience some benefits, but they aren't aware at all of the risk that they're undergoing because they don't actually know what's in the product.
Yeah. It's very scary. I mean, I watched a YouTube video the other day about creatine gummies and how there's 3 or 4 companies out there that are selling creatine gummies that have 0 creatine in them.
Yeah.
They're just gummies. So there's no adverse effects like you're saying. They're just a gummy with some sugar, but there's no creatine. And creatine's like a really well-documented supplement that's like very, very good for you. And if you don't like pills or you don't want the powder and you want to take them in a gummy, what a great idea. These have none. There's one that has been studied that does have it. It's called Create. So if people want to try it, that's a really good one. But there's like 4 or 5 of them that just literally don't have creatine in them at all.
Yeah. No, that doesn't surprise me at all, right? Even in the space that we're in, there are companies that have products that claim to have the molecule in it that literally have none of the molecule in it.
Very interesting. So then my next question is, how did you build trust with your audience and the people that are consuming your product to know that it actually works? Was it through testimonials? You had people come in and try it, or how did you spread the word like that to make sure that obviously now your product is very trusted, it's true, it works, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, I think in the early days, you just have, again, this kind of wacky group of biohackers who will try it at all costs, right? And they're like, well, we have it available. We're the original, oldest and longest manufacturers and distributors of the molecule on the planet. So they're like, this sounds like a good place to land to take it. So we have that credibility piece, which no other company in the space has. And then as we're saying, okay, well, we're getting such amazing testimonials, we really should push this molecule forward. Then, our current strategy is, coming on a show like yours. And thank you for having me, because this is my passion now, is to share this research with as many people as possible. They get a chance to know me. I think our story is important, that we actually didn't want to be a supplement company. We tried hard not to be a supplement company for quite a while. I think that's a testament to, like, these guys aren't just in it for the money. As with any company, they should make money, and we do make money, but our focus is, how are we delivering value? How are we advancing the research? That's why we continue to do research and actually publish. And we actually have I have a call this week I'm pretty excited about to get some clinical trials started. It's actually tomorrow. So we're doing all of those things. And when you see a company that's doing those things, and you go to the one thing I can promise you about the bogus creatine gummy people, they're not doing research.
No.
Right? Like, they're not doing research, and if they are doing research, which they're not, they're not publishing it, right? So when you see a company that's going through the effort to do things the right way, that's where you've got to land. And people ask me regularly, hey, how can I find a good supplement company? And I was like, I wish it was super easy. Like, I wish you could just, rattle them off. And I know of some, because I do a lot of research. I've done a lot of interviews on my podcast. But if you're kind of an outsider who doesn't have the information I have, then the thing you need to do is more research. Like, and I wish it was super easy. Hey, you hear this ESS60 molecule and you just go search it. Well, you're pretty protected there, because it's a trademark that we own. So you're going to get a good product. But if you just, let's say some people have just heard of creatine and they're like, well, let me go on Amazon and buy some creatine. I don't think that's a good strategy. Right? Like, what does a 5-star review on Amazon mean about creatine? Nobody's understanding and documenting the results they had. Basically, Amazon just harassed them until they left a 5-star review, and they haven't died. Right? So at least the product hasn't killed them. Like, maybe that's the takeaway. So you got to spend the time. You got to kind of understand the owners of the company, understand the morals behind the company, and then that's where you can make your decisions.
Yeah. I mean, because what you put in your body is so important, whether it be the food you eat or the supplements you take, like, especially for your health span, your lifespan, your longevity, all those sorts of things. And if you're just taking things sort of willy-nilly, it just can't be good. Like, maybe some of things are going to be hits, right? But that's random. That's not like a structured plan for your life and how you want to be. And so I just think if you're going to take something, it's got to be something that you research, you look into, you think about, kind of like getting a tattoo. They say if you're going to get a tattoo, put it up on your wall for 365 days. And if you still like that thing, then you can get that tattoo. I don't know if people do that, but that's something I heard a long time ago. And it makes sense if you're going to think about taking a supplement that could have a really strong or adverse effect on your body.
Yeah. And if you're putting it in your body, it could have a really strong or adverse effect on your body, right? So that's like, there, you've already triggered that, because you're going to consume it. And then now, take the time to understand it and to understand the company that's behind it.
Yeah. So let's talk about longevity a little bit, because I'm very interested in that. I also have some parents my dad is about to turn 70 and my mom is 63. So I'm thinking about them a lot. But let's start with maybe some myths you've seen about the aging science, stuff that's just like doesn't work, some myths, some bad stuff that maybe has been popularized or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I think where I'll take this is, so I have a longevity summit, and I'm actually in the middle of relaunching the longevity summit. I don't even know if it's on any of my social media. I need to get it on my social media and some of our going out in our emails, but I'm relaunching a longevity summit I did. I interviewed 55 experts in longevity. Very proud to say I interviewed Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Dr. Stephen Gundry, who are pretty well known in the biohacking space. And when I went into this longevity summit, my goal was to find what I called 2 silver bullets, right? The first was the silver bullet that you would just take it and now you live a very long time, or you live very healthy. It would not surprise you that I did not find that silver bullet. That silver bullet did not exist. Unfortunately, I'm here to report that good health is probably really boring, like just like like success. The other one that I was looking for was what could kill us, right? What was, what's the werewolf, or that if you got shot by this silver bullet, it would kill us, that would ultimately take us out. And I do think I found that one, which is I had 2 interviews with stem cell scientists, and it really impressed upon me how valuable stem cells are. I think people, yeah, stem cells good, and maybe you can bank them when you're with the placenta, like when you have a newborn, which I would recommend you do, by the way. And so you're kind of aware that they're valuable, but I don't think it really sets how valuable these are, right? So we all are aware that our skin is sloughing off regularly, right? It's getting replaced. And what replaces it? Stem cells. We may not recognize that every muscle cell in our body is replaced every 90 days, so every 3 months, and it's replaced by stem cells. Those stem cells come from your bone marrow, from your red bone marrow, and that red bone marrow shrinks as we age. So you can imagine at some point, if it shrinks and it's no longer producing stem cells, then you don't have any repair mechanism. So just like your car, let's pretend you had, unlimited supply of gas, but everything else stops. As soon as you stop changing the oil, stop doing maintenance on it, that car's lifespan is limited, right? It may be much longer depending on the car, it may be much shorter, but it is in fact limited. And that is the silver bullet that I've kind of found in the longevity space. Now, I'll add a caveat that I'm really excited about. In my longevity summit, I asked all of the longevity experts, how long do you intend to live? How long do you think humans can live? And what are 2 to 3 protocols, habits, mindsets, let's call them shortcuts for longevity that they would share? So I kind of, all of that is available in the longevity summit. But when I ask people, how long do you intend to live and how long can humans live? If you were to ask me that question, I actually have 2 kind of answers, right? One of them is, how long do I think humans can live, like just with today's technology? And if you do everything right, certainly we can live to 122. That's the longest lived human now is Jean Clement, and she lived to 122 years old. Interestingly, she smoked until her eyesight was so bad she could not light her cigarette, and then she stopped smoking. So it may not all be healthy. There's still hope if you have a couple of unhealthy habits. So 122. But I also believe that we're going to live a lot longer, and I think it's going to be a whole lot longer, and I think it's going to be a whole lot faster than we realize. So the information that I believe supports this is in 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, every 5 years. About 9 months ago is where I kind of pulled this number. Medical information currently is doubling every 90 days, right? So every quarter of the year, we're getting a doubling of information. So what that means is, if you think about how much information we had at the beginning of 2025, there's 16 times more information than that available at the end of 2025. And this doesn't even take into account AI, because I started kind of using that number like I said, about 9 months ago. And I don't think AI is actually going to speed how much information we're creating, because reality at this point is just, it can write the paper, right? It's going to make significantly more differences in the future, but right now it can write the paper. It can also analyze data. So here's where I think AI is going to have the biggest impact in terms of the research environment, which is, researchers are constantly coming up with ideas of what testing, what experiments they should run. And they have lots of data, and they're trying to kind of use their intuition to figure out, hey, this is more likely to succeed, and so I'm going to go down this path. Throw in AI, and it's going to choose that path so much better. So out of these 100 experiments that a particular researcher could do, AI is going to say, hey, these 3 are the ones that are more likely to succeed and push information forward. And so I think whatever is actually possible or not possible biologically in humans, we're going to know really quickly, a lot faster than people realize, what's actually possible and what's not possible. And I personally think, and I love Dr. David Sinclair, he has a book called Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. And he has this thing called the information theory of aging, which says that our bodies are always kind of like these stem cells are replicating, and these stem cells are working in this environment, and they're operating with information. And what happens is over time, let's imagine the information was on a CD, although we're gonna have to come up with another analogy because some generations aren't even gonna know what a CD is, right? But we do.
I got you.
So there's the CD, and as it gets scratched, the music just gets worse and worse. And that is what he describes as aging. And he says, but if you think about it, every cell in your body, so we could take any cell off of your body, Aaron, and we could create a baby Aaron. We could create a clone, and that is it. So the information for everything necessary to make a younger you is in fact in every cell of your body. We just got to figure out the right levers and pulleys and buttons to push in order to actually roll life back. And Dr. David Sinclair is currently doing it in his lab at Harvard Medical School. And so that's what makes me so bullish on the fact that we're going to live a lot longer than we even realize.
Amazing. Yeah. I anytime I talk about longevity, I just think of Ricky Bobby when he talks about that in Talladega Nights. He has this post interview after the car race, and he's like, listen, with my advanced income and technology, it's not stupid that I can't live till 220, 225. And that's exactly what I think about. Like advanced technology, advanced income, probably things that you need both. Right. I mean, I look at a guy like Brian Johnson. I don't know who you think about that guy, but he has a lot of technology and he has a lot of money, and he's using it to try and figure his way to being immortal. What do you think about that guy?
Yeah, I think I couldn't be more appreciative of him, right? Because he's got such a big voice, and he's doing all the right things with a big megaphone, and bringing a lot of awareness to the kind of longevity space, to the biohackers. So I'm really appreciative of him. Would I choose to live my life the way he does? No, that's not something that I'm interested in. Even with the money, there's just more flexibility and fun that I would like to have. And I think he's kind of, in some regard, what he's doing is incredibly boring, right? Like, and that's successful. And like that, we get, to keep coming back to that, to wake up at exactly the same time every day and go to sleep at exactly the same time and have all the electrodes, connected to your body, and to be analyzing that data all the time, right? For some, that sounds really boring. He's figured out a way to make it really exciting. And I think we're getting lots of good information from him. And that's going to advance awareness and the science of longevity forward. So I'm very appreciative of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like super, like, cause I wouldn't be the one to do that. Right. But he is doing it. So like, yeah, so much good information is going to come from what he's doing. It's funny. I saw him tweet the other day. He's like, got home super late. My whole sleep schedule is ruined. And someone commented, like the first comment was, well, you're going to die now.
You just messed
like
up.
One night of sleep ruined. He's fucking just, it's kind of funny. I don't know his sense of humor, but I assume he laughed. Like that seems to me kind of funny, because to do something like he's doing and put it on a public platform, you have no shame about what's happening. Like you're doing it. Like, and so he seems like a guy who would laugh about that, but I just thought that was hilarious. Oh, sorry, you're going to die. That's it. You're done.
Well, and he recently came out and was talking about, he was taking rapamycin, right? Which is, it's a drug typically used to suppress your immune system so it doesn't reject organ donors, right? So when you get an organ donor, there's enough difference between that organ and your own biology that your body will start attacking it. And they use rapamycin, among other kind of drug cocktails, to suppress the immune system so it doesn't reject the organ. And there was some thought process that rapamycin, and I think there still is some, although Brian Johnson has really brought it into a lot more of a question. And he basically was like, I screwed up. I think I was probably aging myself by taking rapamycin. as opposed to actually working towards living longer. And he was very forthcoming about it, and was even kind of laughing about it. He's like, it's ironic because like my every waking breath is to live longer, and here I was taking something that probably did the exact opposite.
Yeah, very interesting. So then we think about an everyday person. What are some of the steps they can do maybe every day to try and increase their longevity?
So I like to think of what an everyday person should be doing in terms of, I found this book, it was on Amazon. It was a super cheap, like ebook, read it. And what was cool about the book is the premise was there's this thing, and this particular description wasn't quoted in the book, but there's this thing called the longevity escape velocity, right? So at some point, the medical community will extend life by more than one day every day, right? And so ostensibly, that's the point, that the medical community is extending your life more than a day every day. So you, in fact, should not die of natural causes. Like, this is not going to preclude, getting hit by a bus, your parachute not working or whatever. but it would, in fact, preclude you from dying from natural causes. And that puts into a situation, and this is something that I believe, that at some point there will be some person who is the last person to die of natural causes. And it would really suck to be that person, right? I mean, they may not know, depending on, where you land, but it would suck to be that person. You want to be on the other side of that finish line. And so do the things that do extend life. And they are the boring things. They are the standard things. Get enough sleep, right? So learn as much as you can from Brian Johnson. I'm pretty good at my sleep. I'm not religious about the exact same time, but I'm typically getting to sleep between 10:30 and 11. People will say that any hour of sleep that you get before midnight counts as 2 hours, right? Like, I love that concept. It really is important. And different people have different chronotypes, so maybe it's later, maybe it's earlier. I tend to wake up at the same point. You need to move every day, right? You need to have 4 types of movements. You don't have to do the 4 types of movements every day, but you need to be lifting heavy things, right? So you need to be building muscle. You should be sore once at least per week, if not twice. And I'm not talking like, oh, I can't move and it hurts to walk up the stairs, but you need to know that you did a tough workout at least once a week. I do twice a week. You need to do something to improve your cardiovascular, your VO2 max. So how much deep breathing can you do? How hard can you push yourself? I love sprints. I love sprints. I don't know if you're maybe with your teams, you're doing sprints. There is something so youthful and energetic and, for me, amazing about doing sprints. And what you want to do is you want to sprint for 20 to 30 seconds and then just walk as slow as you possibly can to get your heart rate back down, and do that 3 to 4, maybe 5 times. And that will increase your VO2 max. And then the other 2 are balance and flexibility. And there's some exercises that you can actually do that will do all of them, depending on, where you are. You can do Tai Chi and yoga, and that will actually do some strength, balance, and flexibility. Pilates certainly would do balance, strength, and flexibility. But you want to be doing some form of motion. And I've got some advice here. And I love, Dave Ramsey. He talks about money and how to and the value that he brings is working with how your mind works, how the mind of man works versus the economics, right? So he talks about, hey, you've got 3 credit cards, you're in debt. The economics say that you should pay off the credit card with the highest interest rate. The human nature says you should pay off the credit card that's going to go to 0 the fastest, right? So even if you're paying a higher interest rate somewhere else, pay off the lower dollar credit card, because you're going to wake up one day and one of those credit cards is going to be paid off. And that's going to feel amazing, even though it's the wrong thing to do from an economic standpoint. And I think the same thing applies to movement. So I played semi-professional soccer. I played soccer for 25 years. My go-to jog was always 3 miles. It didn't, if I took a month off, I went and jogged 3 miles. And I would jog 2 or 3 times, usually more like 2. But I wasn't exercising every single day. In the middle of pandemic, my wife started just jogging 2 miles. And I started thinking, well, I can jog 2 miles. Let me let me jog 2 miles. And you can do 2 miles every day. You can do 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes every day. By cutting back what I was doing, I was able to get over the hump of, oh, it's a full 30 minutes plus I sweat a lot. So I'm like 45 minutes, maybe a full hour in. And so I'm not going to do it. If you have to pare back your exercise routine so that you actually do it every single day, do that. And I, we'll go all the way down. If thinking about walking or jogging 10 minutes a day prevents you from, causes you to skip a day, only think about 5. Just go and do 5. But you need to move every day. If you did 5 minutes a day, you're looking at, was that 35 minutes a week? By the way, 5 minutes a day is better than 35 minutes one day a week. It's the day after day after day. You need to be moving on a regular basis. And then you've got to get your diet right. And I've interviewed probably 120 people in the health and wellness space, and the same story keeps coming up over and over again. Typically, and these are people who are, have challenges. They're people who coach people with challenges, not necessarily optimizing like in the case of your baseball players. But if you're looking at people who are having challenges, get rid of gluten, get rid of dairy, get rid of sugar, and potentially get rid of eggs. And it's probably in that kind of order, because those things cause inflammation in your body, and that inflammation is a thing that ages you. Does it mean you can never have gluten again? You can debate that. Like, how good do you feel when you don't actually have gluten? But it doesn't mean never, right? There are people who understand that they're not supposed to eat rice, but their heritage is they eat rice every day, and so now they can only eat it once a week. But if you really get in tuned, and there's tests you can do this, like food sensitivity tests, get in tune with what actually sets well with your body and provides the nutrition you need versus causing inflammation, those are the things that I would do, and start with sleep.
Amazing. Yeah, it makes me always think of this brilliant book by this guy named BJ Fogg, who wrote, I think, the best habits book, better than James Clear's book. Sorry, James Clear. But his book is called Tiny Habits. BJ Fogg called Tiny Habits. And he says, you want to make your habits too small to fail. And I just love that idea, because you basically broke that down on the walking sense. Like, if I'm trying to start a workout routine, I've been working out since I was 12. Like, I go to the gym. It's like, I close my eyes, I go to the gym. Like, but for some people, that's just not part of their being. And so instead of saying, I'm going to work out 3 times a week for 30 minutes each day, that's like a lot if you don't work out. I'm going to say, I'm going to do 1 push-up 1 time per week. That's a habit that's too small to fail. And then 6 months from now, you got the habit down. But you got to start at such a bare minimum, too small to fail, that you can actually create the habit that makes sense. And for me, in that book, Tiny Habits, when BJ breaks it down, it's like incredible. And then I also heard, based on your eating habits, like 2 really good eating rules that everyone can follow are stop drinking your sugar and eat more real foods. Like, if that's the basic thing that you do, I think that's quite helpful. And then when you build from there, then you can start feeling how you feel when you don't eat this or you do eat this. But man, too many people just drink their sugar all day. And it's like, holy cow, dude, stop drinking your sugar, eat some more real foods, like more real foods. I promise you'll feel better. But I'm no dietary expert. This is just what I've learned from people on this podcast. That's why it's cool for me to be the dumbest person in the room. It's very exciting that I get to learn, that I get to share, and then I get to learn again. But yeah, anything else to add on top of that, Chris?
Yeah, the only thing I love, there was one guy that I who's in the same vein of make it so small that you can't fail. And his concept, he kind of shared, hey, my ideal routine in terms of a workout is 2 hours. Like, I'm doing 45 minutes of cardio, I'm doing 45 minutes of lifting, I'm doing 20 minutes of meditation, and just all of this stuff, right? But I have to have a bare minimum. And maybe it's 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, maybe it's 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 squats, right? So that you get to put that habit, that check mark next to that habit for that day. So, right? So have what's ideal, and then also have what's the bare minimum that you'll accept, and have it. So I love you. Like, I don't think I've read the book, Tiny Habits, but having it so small that it can't fail, so that you get to put that check mark, because that keeps that momentum going.
Yeah, it's brilliant. That's one of my favorite books of all time. But Chris, as we wrap up this conversation, Is there anything that you want to add, maybe that I failed to ask you or didn't ask you or that you want to mention right here?
Yeah, well, I'll share. Let me share just a couple testimonials. Right, our most consistent testimonials: people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And by the way, that's very unusual. I'm not aware of any other supplement that you can take in the morning and positively impact sleep at night. And we believe this is happening because it's positively impacting the mitochondria. That's the powerhouse of every cell. And we believe that it's reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And I'll give one kind of analogy of how we think it's working. So stress is actually good for us. That's why you go to the gym. And if you think that stress is not good for us, you should take a look at astronauts when they go into space and when they come back from space. They're like dumpster fires of health. Their bone density has decreased. Their immune systems are compromised. So stress is actually good for us. So I have this picture of us physiologically as a prairie, right? Beautiful prairie flowers and grasses. And the stress is this rain, this gentle rain that stresses that prairie so that it is optimized and can flourish. But what happens if you have a dark, ominous cloud that pours stress in one spot in the prairie, right? Like a stream, it's going to damage that spot. It's going to create this mud hole. And that's where we believe this ESS60 molecule in the mitochondria comes in. I like to picture it like a sponge where it's between that dark cloud and the prairie, absorbing that stream so it can't do any damage. And an important thing to note here is if you don't manage that dark cloud, if you don't manage that stress, eventually the sponge will fill up and start spilling on the prairie again. But if you do manage it, right now you've got this full sponge, you can squeeze it gently across the prairie. And that is this kind of analogy that we have for how this is working in managing stress. And the reason this lands so well is we actually have a two-time U.S. ultra running champion. His name's Anthony Kunkel. He's currently, you'll appreciate this, he's currently like running 200 miles a week in preparation and training for a race. Yeah, no, he's won a U.S. championship at 50 miles and at 50K. And I'll always remember what he said. He said that in our first conversation, I initially was just taking one serving. I didn't really notice much. And I joke, like all good biohackers, he tripled the servings. By the way, you can't do that in everything, but in this case you can. And he was blown away. He said, I think that your product could be the difference between somebody having running as a hobby and somebody having running as a career. And wow. The reason he said that is I actually don't think it helps exercise recovery. I believe it prevents damage in the first place. And he said, I believe that because on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, by the way, a phrase you won't hear very often, maybe never again, where strength and stability used to be a problem, they're no longer a problem. And that's where that analogy is, right? His dark, ominous cloud is bigger and darker than most because he's running 200 miles a week. And this ESS60 molecule is managing that stress before it actually does the damage. And if you reduce the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you will have positive results and testimonials from head to toe. And that's actually what we have. We actually have testimonials from head to toe. So that's what I would share.
Brilliant. Now, where should people go if they want to try the supplement, they want to give it a go?
Excellent. So we've made a URL for your audience. So it's MyVitalC, C as in carbon. So myvitalc.com/SF everybody, right? So something for everybody. And there we actually have a $15 off coupon code, but you got to go to that particular URL in order to get that code. I'm going to give you a couple tips. We also have, from my longevity summit, I put together 18 biohacks. And so you can download that PDF, just need to give your email. That's available there. People will ask, we have the product in olive oil, in avocado oil, and MCT oil, and they'll ask, hey, which one should I start with? We always recommend the olive oil first, and there's 2 reasons for that. First reason is we're a research-based organization. Almost all of the research is in the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. The next is because you get the highest concentration of ESS60 in olive oil. So you get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, 0.6 in avocado oil, and 0.3 in MCT oil. So always recommend the olive oil first. I do have my book. My book is Live Longer and Better. It's available on Amazon for $19.95, but I have a charity piece that I'm really proud of. So if you go to our website, it's not on that landing page. So again, go to myvitalc.com/SF everybody and grab that coupon code, go in the navigation and find the book. It's also $19.95 on our website. For an additional $10, I'll autograph it for you. The full $10 goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which was an amazing movie about a horrible topic, which is child sex trafficking, which we would like off of our planet immediately. So 100% of the signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. And so very, very proud to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Well, everything that Chris mentioned, linked in the show notes below. So easy to find. Click in the description. Go there, check it out. And then send Chris a message when you try it out and let him know. Buy the book also. But I appreciate the chat, man. Thank you so much. Happy to know you. And thanks for doing the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.